Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Omega Odyssey. In this series, I'll be climbing the Yu-Gi-Oh! Omega Ranked ladder, providing gameplay footage and commentary, giving insight into my decision-making and deck-building choices as they occur, and, hopefully, accomplishing my goal of winning at least 12 of the 15 matches recorded for this series. I was thinking about introducing a punishment if I fail to accomplish this goal. I'm open to suggestions in the comments or in the Discord server, but off the top of my head, I don't really have one. I'm a lover of mischief, but let's make sure that you're not suggesting anything too evil. Alright, into the episode. Hey everyone, Brendan here. Sorry that it's been so long between episodes. The holidays and my dad's wedding fell back to back, so I've been pretty busy and haven't really had much of a chance to edit everything. I'm excited to get back into it though. Alright, let's pull up the deck list. I knew going into this episode there was a few changes that I wanted to make, one of which was to take out the Pot of Prosperity, and then another was to try playing a second Lupus in the main deck, like the winner of some of the most recent YCSs have actually chosen to do. And then also additionally, just sort of sorting through my options, one of my teammates, Trey, gave me the recommendation to try giving Gordian Slicer a look. So we're gonna give that a whirl in this episode as well. All right, let's see how these changes turn out. So, one thing that I try to do to replicate the randomness of die rolls versus rock, paper, scissors on these simulators is that I just sort of click an option on impulse and without really giving it any thought whatsoever. I feel like the mini game of trying to guess what they're going to pick in an attempt to go first is actually potentially damaging to the playtesting experience, as it kind of removes the randomness of a die roll and almost makes it a little mini game in and of itself. That's not really what I'm looking to do here. So you'll see me click an option pretty quickly. I might spin the mouse around and then click. Okay, so here we go. Game 1, match 1. My opening hand is abysmal, but it's also so bad that I have to try to play the game instead of just relying on FUA, like passing, just relying on FUA to draw on a playable. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to normal summon Impulse to summon Fire Attacker, which is really going to be my best bet at drawing into value while still establishing somewhat of a board presence. And the There Can Be Only One will hopefully be impactful enough on its own to keep myself alive after I've gotten my value out of the Fire Attacker. Additionally, the Impulse being a warrior and the Fire Attacker being a machine means that there's no conflict for the There Can Be Only One. So the early droplets to me here is actually somewhat amusing. I was already in a bad spot, and now he stops the one thing that I could do to try to get value, and this immediately makes me both audibly groan and also kind of laugh at the fact that ultimately this meant nothing, because my game plan is still the same, right? It's Tikaboo or bust. And I see a Cyber Dragon core get added to hand, that card's just gonna hit the board, and the funny part is that I'm immediately breathing a sigh of relief, as I know that the There Can Be Only One is going to be putting in some work this game. My only concern at that point, right, is that some of the cyber cards, like the Cyber Darks, are also dragons, and I don't want to get OTK'd by a big dragon monster, but, each search just makes me more and more confident that I'm going to win this game somehow. And, Tikaboo carries, man. That card is dumb. So we see him search the Cyber Jorgmundir, one of them's, and then trigger Hertz's effect to add Cyber Dragon. Now, I have not seen a single legitimate Cyber Dark card enter rotation here, which tells me, it's basically game over. There's nothing really, anything this guy can do to get out of the situation, except for potentially summon And, there we go. He scoops. So immediately siding becomes slightly weird for me, as I know I want to try the Gordian Slicer, but I also don't think it's going to be very good into this matchup. And, well, we're going to see something here in a sec, but you'll notice with my siding patterns that I make a very embarrassing mistake, which is I happen to forgot that I was playing against Cyber Dragon, a deck that traditionally goes second. So you are going to see me siding in a lot of cards that are designed to go second. Wow. Oh man. Brutal. Brutal. Almost entertainingly bad. And it's going to dawn on me as soon as I draw my opening hand. I'm going to be like, here it is. Oh my God, I'm going first. Oh, I'm playing Cyber Dragon. How did I not think about the fact that Cyber Dragon will want me to go first? I'm about to get clowned on by the audience. But thank goodness, I was insulated from the worst of it by opening both Holly Sue, and having Azuna is going to give me opportunities to draw my high impact cards that can make this not a brutal loss. So I just pass. I'm like, okay, I've got 2 Charmies in hand. I'm fine to just pass. Azuna will give me a little bit of a security blanket. If I draw into attributes, I've got the Holly Sue. I'm gonna be fine, right? So, we let this resolve, because what else am I gonna do? And, we cross our fingers, hope that we're gonna get a nice top deck here. Hertz is going to trigger. Let's see what he adds. Oh, triggers Chimera as well. So this is where we sort of realize, okay, so this guy does play Cyberdark cards. We see Worm and Chimera. I think both of those are also machines, though. So, the dragon aspect of Cyberdark isn't really going to come up. But he normal summons the core, and I draw a Meowls, which also just not particularly helpful right here. What this does do, though, is, in the event that I draw a dark, like a Mad Love, I still get to keep an Earth in hand and use the Meowls. So if I have to use the Azuna early, I'm fine. But really, there's just a lot of other cards I'd rather be drawing. The cannon hits hand. And so that's the first Cyberdark Dragon monster. So that's information for me to be retaining just in case it ends up coming up. So interestingly, he adds Chimera here. I guess that does make sense, right? The additional normal summon that he's going to get will help him get access to cards like Power Bond. And I draw the Lupus too, and begin to facepalm that. Of course, I draw the absolute least helpful card to draw in this situation, as I already had Azuna access to it. Woof. A lot of Earths in my hand. That is 5 Earth monsters in my hand. Ugh. Absolutely brutal. So the good news is that I do get a little bit of a blessing here. I think my opponent realizes that there's just not much he can do, and then lets it time out, or he just DCs and I get a free win. Spoiler alert, time's just going to run out on this guy. I was mostly confident in my ability to win this game anyway, so I'm not too worried about how this reflects on me or the deck. The Azuna and Lupus being able to generate a body would probably end up being pretty good here. Just like a Nash Knight on whatever big Cyber Dragon monster they choose to summon would end up doing the trick. And I win. Not very exciting. Sorry, everybody. I wanted to show off cards and I didn't really get a chance to. The Gordian Slicer was there in my hand. All right, and moving on. So I'm going to win my die roll here at the start of the next round just to spoil it. And my opening hand is also pretty filthy. I do something a little odd. I guess it's not that odd, but what I'll do is my first action is going to be Fualis at the start of main phase. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to tempt a potential Dracotail player into using 5 mana immediately to try to not give me any draws. That way our Thalian triggers before I have, anything of value to stop. So next action here is going to be to normal summon the Mad Love, and then I'm going to chain the Borger to the Mad Love just in case of a Droll and Lockbird. I'll add the field spell. If they droll, I can chain the Borger to Failure to draw one. They ended up not having the Drone Lockbird here, which was great, so I can start with the field spell. Field spell can go ahead and grab me the Holly Sue, and because I have the Fire and the Dark in hand, I'm good to go, play my turn. The cool part about my opening hand was that there was so much variety in the way that I could have sequenced it, and none of the answers were really too wrong. So for example, I could have started with the Stake Your Soul, revealing the Ash Blossom. That way, if they have a Fualos, I can Ash the Fua, and I will have already used the Fire for the Stake Your Soul. So I don't lose out on the value of having a Fire. But here we're going to go immediately into a Ripper, because now that I've confirmed that they don't have Droll, I'm worried about Nibiru. So as my 5th summon, Ripper's going to hit board. So I go Sue, summon the Xiaolong from deck, go right into Ripper, and we should be good to go from there. Detach the Ripper, and we're going to search the case of K9 here. Now, technically that's kind of an error, because it puts you down a body, but I also know that based on my board, I'm not going to be getting extra value out of my K9 monsters this turn, so I won't be able to get excess bodies on board with it. So I'm going to actually end up searching the case of K9, because I know I'm only going to need to search 2 names. And because of that, case of K9 having the effect to give my monsters an attack boost was going to be more important. Now, I had a little bit of an issue where I searched the Jokel, and in order for me to be able to keep extending, I needed to be able to link off the Borger, so I had to draw with the Borger early. Now, typically what I'll do is I'll hold on to the Borger effect to draw until the end of the turn after the field spell is set the trap card, that way I don't draw into the trap. But in order for me to be able to extend how I would like to, and be able to get 2 Vanquish Soul names on board at the end of my turn, I needed to link off the Borger there, so I had to draw a little bit early. So right now I'm, kind of going through my options, and I'm deciding what I'm going to search, with the Jokel. I choose to search the Azuna, because I know that I'm not going to be getting, Lantern value this turn. I know that I have no intention of summoning a Lantern or doing anything, with that. So I'm just going to search the Azuna to effectively search a hand trap here, to have the Earth, and to make sure that I have an extra interruption. And then we are going to go ahead and summon the Rosin here, and Rosin will search the Caesar Valius. At this point, I basically have everything I need, right? I'm going to be ending my turn. I've got a Rosin in the opponent's EMZ column. The field spell is going to be setting the trap card. So, I've got a live Snow Devil, all 3 attributes in hand, Azuna, Ash, Rosin Column Pop, Caesar, Sue, Ripper's Negate, and a Mad Love Bounce if I need it. I'm good. I mean, this is, obviously a little clunky, because I could have potentially had additional interruption if I had sequenced my plays a little bit differently, but really, I mean, what more could I ask for? I guess a Nash Knight effect, go through that play line, but I'm not playing 104, so I'm not super pressed to make it on this turn. And then additionally, I have the Azuna in hand to make whatever rank 5 monster I feel like on the opponent's turn in the event they end up playing into it. So genuinely, I'm fine. At least I feel that I'm fine. Unfortunately for me, my opponent is going to start with a Book of Eclipse, which is a little bit annoying, and it would be more annoying if I didn't have the Ash Blossom. So, obviously I'm going to use my Ash Blossom here, because the Book of Eclipse is just really bad for me if it goes off, except there's 2 of them. So now a double Book of Eclipse is very annoying. So I do what I have to do and bounce my Rosin to hand in order to make sure that I can at least have my 3 attributes where they belong. So, I'll use the Rock effect to add back to hand, and what I'll end up doing is I'll end up bouncing with Caesar in order to get the Rosin back in hand so that I have a Fire. Oof. Double Book of Eclipse is crazy to me. So we get the Borger back, we summon the Caesar. We're just going to kind of wait here. And the game plan ultimately is use Snow Devil as my safety net. I still have an Azuna, and then I see him normal summon the Scolio, and as soon as I see a Lunalite monster hit board, I know my game plan. Keep them off Kaleido Chick. So Kaleido Chick serves as the way that they access Liger Dancer. If I can keep that monster's effect from resolving, then I can keep them off of a Liger Dancer unless they have a pretty sculpted or specific hand. So once this hits board, I'm actually going to use my trap card because it's going to give me double value on popping 2 monsters. Which, I mean, what more value am I realistically going to be able to get out of it against this deck when their #1 game plan is to just summon 1 big body? So, I mean, 2 pops for the price of 1 is pretty good. I also want to use this early because I do want to have to be using my Azuna to interact with them through additional extenders. So, the longer that I hold on to the trap card, the longer that I have to hold on to the Earth in hand, and that's just a little awkward. So I had the option to summon Madlove and Rosin, and I should have summoned Rosin, because it would get me access to Sue, which gives me the option between stealing and summoning Madlove from deck, anyways. And also getting a bounce effect. I picked Madlove, which you're going to see, and I feel bad about it, because I had a brain fart in the moment, and I thought, oh, Sue is just going to be summoning Madlove anyways, so why put a Sue and Rosin at risk when I can just skip all the steps and summon Madlove? Well, this was stupid of me, because the luxury of choice is basically the #1 reason why this deck is so fun and dynamic. So, instead of summoning the Madlove here, if I summon the Rosin and I search the Sue, I can Borg or bounce the Rosin back to hand to get the fire, and then I still have the Sue to be able to summon the Madlove from deck to bounce anyway, what would probably end up happening is I use Sue's effect to steal the Kaleido Chick, which could have been infinitely more impactful than bouncing it. Reason being is, well, if they don't have the card, they don't have a way to keep bringing it back from grave because it's on my field. They'd have to be able to out it and then bring it back, which, I mean, good luck with that with now what is a live Azuna in my hand. All right, so the Masquerade has been activated. It goes off, dumping the Martin. The Martin's effect is going to activate here, adding the Lunalite Fusion. Now, one thing that I do have kind of going for me here is that I don't have an extra deck monster on my field currently. So Lunalite Fusion is not really anything for me to worry about outside of like a Perfume Dancer, right? I'm not worried about that Lunalite Fusion turning into a Liger Dancer just yet. So now they're going to use the Yellow Martin's effect, summoning itself and bouncing it to hand. The good news for me is that the Martin's defense is 2000, so I won't be able to bounce the Martin to hand, which means that if they summon a Kaleido Chick, I can bounce that. Now, what I will say is that the Thrust is very annoying, since it just gives them a free Perfume to get Kaleido Chick access again. And woof. So fortunately for my sense of guilt over making the misplay of not searching the Sue would have been summoning the Madlove anyways, since the Martin would have stopped me from stealing the Kaleido Chick. So I don't have to feel, horrible about it, right? The Martin's attack being so low means that the whole idea of, oh, Sue, steal the Kaleido is a viable option for me. It's not. And it's because the Martin play happens, so I don't have to feel awful about that misplay, but just, if ultimately it gets me to the extra body here anyway, the Madlove, no matter what, might as well search the Rosin, special the Rosin. And potentially, the Rosin even has a chance to get some value on a column pop if they misplay into it, and that could get me some additional value as well, where I'll know pretty early if they're going to play into it or not. And because of the luxury of having quick effects with my Sue, my Madlove bounce, my Borger bounce, really I should be letting my opponent make the mistakes here. But, ultimately I don't think that it had a massive impact on the game itself. So they're going to go ahead and use the Lunalite Fusion. Again, I'm not terribly worried because, again, I don't have any extra deck monsters. So I'm just going to let this go through. They won't be able to just cheat it out. And right now I'm just waiting to sort of see what happens. I know that they aren't really going to be making the Liger Dancer here, so I have to see what play line they're going for before I summon the Borger and, try to see what I can draw into, and really what I'm aiming for is to see if I can draw into a Sue before I commit to using the Azuna in my hand. But we got to get there first, right? So Perfume Dancer, it's going to add Lunalight Perfume, which will give them, another chance to keep extending. But here, we're going to use the Borger effect. And really, I really just want to draw Holly Sue if I can get access to it, right? Maybe even a Nibiru or something. Just some card that is going to put me in a position of having an extra interruption while I can. I just don't want to commit to the Azuna unless I have to, right? Because the way that I see it is that Azuna is my last hope to not have a Liger Dancer hit board. All right, so he activates the Lunalight Perfume, summons back the Kaleido Chick. Now, I have a little bit of an issue here where I think I right-clicked the Azuna, so it doesn't let me summon it. And that's a problem because now the Kaleido Chick has actually gotten the chance to dump the Leo Dancer. And if I was going to be able to keep him off of Liger Dancer, I needed that not to happen. So that was really detrimental because that's basically what is going to let him single-handedly get his Liger access, which I could have prevented if I summoned the Azuna, dumps Lupus summons, and then I make a Nash Knight to eat it. Now, fortunately for me, he does have the third Book of Eclipse, which is about to hit the board right now, and it make it so that it doesn't even matter that the Azuna hit board because I wasn't going to be making anything to stop the Kaleido Chick anyway. But it also means that, well, the Leo Dancer wouldn't be in grave, so when he ends up doing what he's going to do here, which is he adds Wolf to hand to be able to fuse, the Leo Dancer is not in grave to fuse with, so Liger Dancer is not a viable play option. So I actually punt so hard. I punt this game because I accidentally right-clicked on the emulator rather than left-clicking. It's soul crushing because this game was winnable despite him having triple Book of Eclipse and me misplaying my first turn. This game was very, very winnable. So another thing happens, which is that I'm a little bit confused why I can't summon a Typhon to try and keep the Lupus around when he summons the Liger Dancer. It just doesn't let me do it before. So we go into battle phase and he just attacks, and I don't get the opportunity to use the Lupus here. I could have done it in main phase because I believe I know its effect to summon itself back is main phase only, but the effect to XYZ summon is not main phase only. Maybe it's a Typhon thing. I'd have to go back and read Typhon. Typhon might have some clause saying that it has to be summoned in the main phase. Maybe I'm just an idiot and didn't read that. But so that ends up happening. It's pretty bad. Ugh. But because this happened, my new game plan becomes to summon Rocks and Caesar and then swing over the Liger Dancer. Which unfortunately, I'm going to find that with this hand, it's just not possible right now. It would just take a little bit too much setup. And as bad as things look, I think it was possible for me to actually win from this position. However, I just keep making stupid decisions and placing monsters in attack position and so many things that I don't need to. We're going to kind of see me do it with this turn, right? So if I had placed Rosin in the rock column instead of in the middle, I could have summoned everything in defense and used my field spell to protect it from Liger as well, like as I wall up until I'm ready to push. Instead, what ends up happening is I summon monsters in attack position, and I just end up letting this Liger kill me. So, I summon Rock. I think I end on like an SP and a Rock. And, I mean, what on earth am I doing that for? This guy doesn't have to do a single card. He just has to go straight into battle phase and kill me. And, at that point, it's GG. But there was a lot of mistakes made in this particular game. I am very disappointed in myself for the way that I, played everything out on this particular turn. But Yeah, I should have been going into rocks here. And then getting access to Caesar. But instead what I end up doing is I end up making rock to get Caesar back. And then another issue, right, is that I could make rocks here and pass turn. And then, you know, obviously, oh, he'd have to swing into the Caesar Valius, which is bigger than the Liger Dancer. Well, that's not exactly the case, unfortunately. So there's a couple of issues. One is that I'm only at 400 life points. So Liger Dancer is not affected by Rock of the Vanquisher's effect to force it to attack my highest attack monster. So that's one thing that's a problem for me. The other thing is that because I'm so low life points, I actually don't have the luxury of putting, you know, monsters on field that are too weak. What I probably could have ended up doing was, instead of making SP, I could wait and I could make the rocks in defense. Wait until his turn, rock to summon the Caesar, and then Caesar could pop the rock, and, you know, maybe that does something, but the issue there is that he would just go Liger effect. I would have to use my field spell to protect, and then from there he just swings over the rocks, which is going to be in defense, and then just swings into the Caesar for lethal. So, you know, there might have been a way for me to play this out where I could actually still win the game. I was just making a whole bunch of mistakes. This game was really ugly for me. I'm quite embarrassed by it, actually. Right now, I'm literally just doing whatever the heck. Like, trying to bait this guy into activating a card effect so that I can SP run away and then not die. But no, it's too late for me. And I'm just summoning bodies, hoping that it makes him have to Liger swing into my 2 Vanquish Soul monsters instead of, you know, my rock or my SP. Unfortunately, that is not what happens. He just sort of says, hey, I'm all good. I've got this giant unaffected towers that can swing over anything you summon. So I just lose. And we're just waiting on me to lose here. And I summoned Caesar in attack position. Why did I do that? No! Literally, as soon as I summon the Caesar in attack position, I go to surrender because I know that it's over. All right, so side decking. So my sides are basically coming in to try and either floodgate my opponent out of making cards, or serve as a last, like, oh shit button option in the route of keeping them off of Liger Dancer. So throwing in Nibiru, or, you know, potentially using Lancia as a means of keeping them off of cards like Heavy Poly or Wolf Effect, and then obviously using the Gravekeeper's Inscription as an additional means of keeping them off of Liger. The Lancia, ironically, isn't for Heavy Poly like it would be for any other deck. We actually want Lunalight to activate Heavy Poly, since it's just a free win for us thanks to Borger's effect. Now, unfortunately for me, this hand blows, and I'm immediately worried that I'm going to lose this game if they have a single interruption. Fortunately, I get as far as I do, which we're gonna see here with, you know, normal summon Lantern. Lantern's gonna search case. He can't drill me because I used Shifter, and then I'm gonna be able to use the case in order to get access to Jokul, and then Jokul will obviously help me summon the Holly Sue. However, a single copy of Ash Blossom or an Imperm at any point in this turn was going to absolutely cook me. You know, again, fortunately, you know, Ripper does get me to all 3 attributes in hand, because I do get to search the earth with the Jokul. And then as a 4th summon, I'm just going to go straight into the Ripper. Ripper's going to get me access to another Dark in hand, since that's the missing attribute that I have for Holy Sue. Now, another thing here, right, is that I am just going to decide to blatantly play into the Charmy instead of playing it safe, because I do have Tikaboo and Azuna plus Sue, and to me, right, really this is only the need to give them one more draw with Sue, and in return I get my field spell, my trap card, and a Borger for free draws. So to me, I look at the trade-off there of one draw for that much value versus the sense of security of giving them less cards, and decide that it's worth it to just say, all right, fine, I'll give you an extra draw with the Holy Sue effect. That's totally okay. I'd rather get my field spell. I'd rather get an extra, bodies, and then my trap card and a free draw off of Borger. Plus, Peekaboo is a heck of a card, so I won't lie if I didn't say that gave me a sense of security on the matter. So currently, Borger and Snow Devil exist to point a gun at this player's head and say, please activate Heavy Polymerization. Oh my god, please activate that card. And another thing is that because we're under Shifter, I know that the Ripper is going to get me some pretty nice value on where I can use my effects, right? Because I don't have to worry about graveyard effects. There's only really one in-hand Lunalight effect that I care about. Which I think he actually does play here. Yeah, I don't care about the Perulia. I'm fine with that resolving. At this point, I have everything that I need to win. He's under Shifter. I'm all good. Genuinely, I'm not worried about it. This is the thing with a lot of decks where they have choke points. They have critical aspects of their gameplay that either you can prevent in order to win, or that make it easy for you to formulate game plans in order to beat them. And so for me, the game plan against Lunalight is keep them off of Liger. So here, this card's fine. I really don't care. This means nothing to me. And what they search is actually going to give me information about their hand and what I need to be worried about or what I need to be playing around. I'll take all the information I can get on how to use my interactions against them. So here's the black sheet, right? And to me, I see that, and that's totally fine. I mean, what am I worried about? I just use the Ripper here. He's under Shifter. I am not worried about graveyard effects. So yeah, I mean, this is great value for my Ripper. Everything's totally fine. At this point, I want them to just say, oh, screw it, activate Heavy Poly. So they're going to go into Thrust, which again, I'm like, oh, Thrust? He's going to search Heavy Poly. I'm hopeful. A Talents here would make me a little sad, but I see him at the Heavy Poly, and I know, okay, I've just won this game at this point, right? Like, there's nothing that he could do with the Heavy Poly that is going to make me legitimately concerned enough. So he activates Heavy Poly. I'm just going to go ahead and immediately shotgun my Borger and my trap card to just burn this guy for, like, what is that, 3,300? So this Heavy Poly is likely to just kill him. And that's what we do. And now we just win. Thanks for the free win, Lunalight player. This is what I mean, right? We want them to activate Heavy Poly, so I actually don't love Lancia going first against them. I like it going second because, it keeps them off of using Wolf as an option, or, if they manage to get the Masquerade effect in order to give them the option to banish instead. I do like that as a means of keeping them off of the Liger. So, going second, I don't know why I was looking at that Lancia to take it out. I think with hindsight, I definitely would want to keep that in. But game 3, match 2, I don't put the Gordian Slicer in because if a Liger hits board, it's too late already. Just go for whatever I can do to try and stop them. So, Charmies, the extra Lupus because I want to see it if I can. Throw the Lancias in there. Yeah, I keep the Lancia. That's just sort of the game plan, right? Get whatever I can to try to keep them from making a Liger, because if Liger hits board, it's kind of already too late unless I have a really, really specific hand and they only summoned a Liger, like one Liger, and they have nothing else. And this is why we play K9 VS. I love this game. Oh my god, look at this hand. This hand is disrespectfully good. It's Sue plus attributes plus the Impulse Fire Attacker plays and Lancia. I mean, I am looking at this and just straight up laughing at my opponent, knowing this game is over. So, you know, at this point, it's just we're back to the game plan. Keep them from dumping Leo Dancer with Kaleido Chick, you know? And a big thing, right, is that fortunately the Lancia makes it basically impossible to accomplish a successful summon of the Liger Dancer, even if Kaleido dumps, as long as I remove the Kaleido from the field before they have the opportunity to defuse. Because they're really going to need to be able to banish from Graveyard that Leo Dancer in order to summon the Liger Dancer. So I'm good. You know, the Gold Leo, use the Rescue Ace Impulse effect, summon the Fire Attacker. Fire Attacker's going to get me draws here. And again, this is so okay because I happen to have the Xiaolong in hand already to have the fire. So okay. Oh my god, this hand is so good. Just looking at it makes me smile. Yeah, so here are the Fire Attacker draws. And they aren't really going to be anything too valuable, right? It's a Shifter and a Rescue Ace Impulse. Now, the only thing that these are going to give me at this point in time are attribute value, right? Do I need the Dark in hand, or do I need the Fire in hand? And, you know, you look at that Borga, you think, oh, it'd be nicer to have the Dark in hand. Well, that's not really true here. I'd like the Fire because I see the path, right? The path is that I'm going to go, you know, summon Sue. Sue can summon like a Rosin or a Xiaolong to get an extra fire on field, and then I can use use Rosin to get a Xiaolong and summon the Xiaolong and search, or, you know, maybe I'll summon Rosin, Caesar, bounce the Rosin to hand, Xiaolong summon, reveal the 2 fires. But the idea is that because now I have 2 fires in hand, I have way more options on what I can summon with Sue or search with Rosin and still get an extra search. So I'm legitimately not worried about whether or not I'll be able to get a Dark in hand for Borger. The extra fire in hand does way more for me. And again, I kind of just check out because, like, what on earth is this player gonna do? You know, at this point, he can do whatever the heck he wants. You know, I'm only paying attention to one card, and it's Kaleido Chick. I mean, nothing from the extra deck is on field, so I'm not worried about Lunalight Fusion. Genuinely, it's just wait until Kaleido Chick hits board and stop the Kaleido Chick before it has the ability to dump the Leo Dancer. So I'm just gonna let cards resolve until I'm in the position of needing to use my card effects. So here's the Kaleido Chick. All right, so this is when I need to play. Sue is going to reveal the Xiaolong, and it's going to hit board. Now, I could get greedy here and summon the Xiaolong as well. I'm not going to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is hold off, because really I can summon that Xiaolong whenever I want. We're going to use the Sue's effect. We're going to reveal the Xiaolong. We're going to reveal the Borger. The reason why we don't reveal that Impulse yet is because those last 2 cards in hand, the Impulse and the Lancia, could be anything to this guy. I mean, we just drew 2 cards. We discarded a Shifter. He could assume that we drew the Shifter, but could be anything. We are going to summon the Rosin here, use its effect to search. And the obvious search here is Caesar Valius, right? We want an extra interruption, but we put it into the Kaleido Chick column. Again, obviously we want to be able to column pop, so we're just going to reveal and reveal, hit that Kaleido Chick before it has the opportunity to use its effect on field, and we have to be doing these in quick effect succession. So quick effect, summon Sue, quick effect, summon Rosin, quick effect, Rosin column pop. And I could get, you know, I could get greedy here and summon the Xiaolong, which I could have done early, but what I would do is I would bounce the Rosin with Caesar and then use the Xiaolong to add Sue so that now I have all 3 attributes in hand. Instead, I actually choose to hold on to my cards just in case, since at this point I'm worried about 2 cards in total. 2. 1, Nibiru on their turn, punishing me, which, woof. That would feel bad. And then Book of Eclipse, which we've actually seen this guy play already. And something that would give me a little sense of comfort is that the Xiaolong can help me change battle positions of a booked monster in the event of a Book of Eclipse, or I can safely bounce the Rosin back to hand with a Borger or a Caesar in order to basically, you know, make sure that I have a starter on my turn. Because right now, my hand, to start my turn, if I had nothing on field, would be heinously ugly. I wouldn't even really get to play the game. What I probably should have done is what I do here. I should have done this a little bit earlier. Caesar target the Sioux. And again, you know, you could argue, oh, why didn't we summon the Xiaolong and search the Sioux anyway? Well, again, you know, I was just trying to be safe. And now my opponent makes the fatal flaw here, which is they're going to use the Book of Eclipse in response to the effective bounce, not knowing that I still get to bounce and I still get to summon. I mean, that, you know, that's something that's been going on since 2023 Nationals when Wild Survivors came out and I've been playing this deck. You know, people make this mistake all the time. You know, I'm not going to call my opponent a bad player for it. You know, better players than this guy have made that mistake. You know, everyone has to learn the hard way. And again, at this point, I am so totally fine with what's going on. I mean, if he summons Kaleido Chick, great. I've got the Caesar pop to get rid of it. Reveal the Borger, reveal the Sioux, reveal the Xiaolong, and we are golden. So again, you know, not going to trigger the Xiaolong here. No reason to do that. You know, I don't have the 2 fires in hand. And like, sure, yes, I could summon the Xiaolong and then Xiaolong reveal the impulse to flip the rosin up and Borger bounce it. But again, like, what does that get me? Gets me nothing. You know, I would only do that in the event of a situation where I know that they have no other plays. That's not the case. You know, at this point, again, I'm just trying to keep them off of Liger Dancer. So my 2 biggest concerns are a Liger Dancer and a Baguska. I'm more worried about Liger Dancer than I am Baguska, so I'm actually just going to let them go through a Baguska line. And again, what am I worried about? Liger. And why do I not really care? Well, you know, I've got the Lancia. So, you know, they can search whatever the heck they want, but at the end of the day, it's just really important that I keep them off of Liger. So here, you know, I don't really have ways to stop them from summoning back the Kaleido Chick with the perfume. They're going to manage to get a Kaleido Chick off. But to what end? Right? To what end? Okay, here's the Perfume Dancer. Going to bounce back the Kaleido Chick. And they're going to summon the Kaleido Chick. And I probably could have used Lancia here to keep them from using the Perfume Engrave. But to some degree, you know, I kind of want them to commit to certain things. And one of the things that I want them to commit to is Wolf. Like, I don't, you know, in the event that I can't kill them on my turn, you know, I don't want that Perfume in there as an extender. I want them to get that Wolf into rotation because I know that's their only play. If they want to summon a Liger Dancer, they got to search Wolf. And so that, I mean, that's totally fine with me because they summon Wolf, or they, you know, scale Wolf, attempt to use its effect, I chain the Lancia, and then it's just Baguska pass, right? There's a concept that I think people need to do more, which is the idea of commitment, right? Force your opponent, or let your opponent commit to certain play lines that are going to punish them down the line, right? Now, you don't want to let them play things out to a point where they can, you know, get a 1-up on you or potentially win the game. But in this situation, yes, I could have Lancia'd before the Perfume went off and kept the Perfume from searching. But why would I do that when I can make him commit to getting Wolf access, use the Wolf where now it's vulnerable, Lancia in response to that, and then I'm good. You know, I already knew that his hand was not anything threatening because of the way that he played his turn. So I knew that Wolf was his only option to get to Liger Dancer, and there's the Lancia to keep him off of it. And genuinely, now all I have to do is play through a Baguska. Sure. And the Book of Eclipse just gives me 2 free cards because, you know, why not? Gee, thanks. Now, funny enough, I actually win this pretty quickly. Yeah, I mean, that whole last turn was basically me just toying with my food, which was kind of fun. But you know, this turn, Baguska would normally be a problem for me. But fortunately, the current build of this deck plays a card that we were not playing before the ban list hit. Razan and stake your soul to 1, and that is Saryuja. Woo! So I'm just going to link 4 for free. You know, I've got starters in my hand. I'm all good. There's the Saryuja. That hits board. I can just swing over the Baguska, and he's just going to scoop. So, yeah. I mean, with how ugly that game 1 was, I don't feel like I deserved to win that match. But, you know, I made really, really good decisions with my cards. And ultimately, game 3, I drew kind of disrespectfully good, so I don't want to chalk it up to skill, but you know, I did use my interactions properly. You know, I do know how to beat the matchup, so you know, I don't want to feel bad about it. You know, I did deserve that win. So I do go into changing the side deck because I do feel like I need more blanket go first cards, and you know, I know it's recency bias, just not getting to use some of the cards in my side deck, but every single card in that side deck I feel like has value, or I got to use in some of my matches, except for Gordian Slicer. So I end up making the decision that you know, between the Slicer and the Feather Duster, I'd rather just take out the Gordian Slicer. I'll throw in a Judgment, you know, give myself one more kind of blanket go first card, and you know, call it a day, go into the next match. That's what we do. So we go into match 3 here. This one taking a little bit longer than the other ones, but we get into it and, you know, play our rock, paper, scissors. We do win the die roll once again here. And unfortunately, the hand is looking a little tough, but it's not the worst thing that I've seen, right? This has potential. So what we're going to end up doing is actually, I'm just going to pass because I've got Impulse, I've got Fua, I've got Ash. What I really just need is to draw into a Madlove or a Borger. And, you know, this isn't the worst thing that I've ever seen, just because of the nature of the Vanquish Soul K9 deck, giving us so much access to gameplay, like impactful gameplay on the opponent's turn, that I'm not horribly worried. I look at this, I go, oh, of course, right? This would have been so much better going second, and then I pass. Now my opponent's going to normal summon a Radiant Typhoon monster. I'm going to chain my Rescue Ace Impulse here, and then I'm going to chain the Fualos to the Rescue Ace Impulse, because if I don't, then Fua's just not going to be live anymore, because now I'm going to have a monster on the field. All right, I'm going to get my draw 2, discard 1. And then what I'm going to end up deciding to discard is a copy of the Rescue Ace Impulse, just in case they manage to remove the fire attacker on my field. You know, I've got the extra Fua, and he's going to continue playing. Now, once he searches, he takes a little bit of time to decide what he's going to do here. And ultimately what he ends up doing is he ends up throwing a Talents at me, and, you know, looks at my hand. Spoiler alert. And then, you know, unfortunately for me, I only have one half decent card in my hand that could be considered a threat if he kept playing, which is the Holly Sue. So he's just going to put that back. And then my hand is just super dead. Just super dead. So he's going to Talents Rip, put the Sue back, and then just pass, because he doesn't want to give me any draws when my hand is this bad. There's just no reason to do that. I've already resolved the Fua. If he makes an XYZ or a Link, it could put me in a position of drawing into something impactful. He knows there's nothing going on. So, you know, why not just set to, you know, have a board presence. You know, he's not really being threatened by anything, and just pass turn. Now, we do draw the Azuna, and, you know, I don't know much about this archetype, but to the best of my knowledge, they don't use in-hand or graveyard effects enough to make this Azuna worth keeping in my hand. So I'm just going to normal summon it because he has 2 cards in hand. You know, dump the name just to have it. And then, you know, I'm not really going to get value out of the Azuna unless they play into the fire attacker. Or, you know, they give me the chance to draw 2, discard 1. And so I just kind of put my monsters into attack position, go straight into battle, try to clear some of these bodies. What I could have tried to do is go straight into battle phase with the fire attacker. You know, maybe they activate a card that's going to trigger the fire attacker so I can draw 2, discard 1, and then maybe I draw into like a Jokul or something where the Azuna in hand now, you know, doesn't need to be normal summoned. But I figured that this was the best value out of my cards, right? I couldn't ensure that my opponent was going to do what they did here, which was activate a card that's going to trigger my fire attacker, draw 2, discard 1. Unfortunately for me, I did draw into a Jokul, so it's like, man, hindsight's 2020 on this one. But, you know, once the attacks go through, now I'm thinking like, okay, what do I do with my turn? I'm contemplating making an SP so that my Fua would be live because I can just run away on his turn and then Fua. We are, however, in a simplified game state against a deck that I don't believe has a particularly high ceiling. So I decided that I'd rather just get the secured value off of Fire Attacker and keep the big bodies here. They're kind of huge, and my opponent's Radiant Typhoon cards aren't that large. And I know this deck searches quite a bit. You know, if there's one thing that I've seen across the 2 turns that I've played against it, it's that they have cards that add to hand. Great. You know, Fire Attacker is going to get me my value. You know, this is the 3rd time this game that I will be drawing 2, discarding 1 off of my Fire Attacker. Now, unfortunately for me, he does have the droplets, so I do not get to draw 2, discard 1 again. But the fact that he had to use a droplets here, I mean, come on. That feels so bad for him. You know, I was just the chance to draw into Sue and a name, and then the Lupus Engrave making Azuna turn into a body. I don't know. It was just too tempting to leave these bodies on board. You know, the SP might not have gotten me that value. Now, I do hold interaction up until the Nerval because I didn't really know what this deck did. But once I see that the Nerval's being used, I know, okay, this, you know, there's a Tri-Brigade deck. I don't want to let them just get bodies for free. So I kind of put them on already having a name in hand. And once again, you know, they summon another Radiant Typhoon monster. And you know, I have to sit here and decide, okay, is this the right time to use my interaction? You know, I do decide that I'm going to use Lupus. And Lupus is going to go into the Nash Knight to eat the body. I probably could have played this a little bit better if I was a little bit more familiar with the deck. But, you know, I knew at this point, in order for them to be able to play, they need what exactly? What is it? Kyros, I think. They would, I don't know if they normal, I don't think they normal summon, but they would need exactly a Tri-Brigade name in hand. And, you know, I hadn't seen one in their hand yet. So I figured, all right, you know, we'll take the risk. And I just, Nash Knight eat something to keep them from linking to. And of course, there's the Kyros, so they do get a chance to play the game, unfortunately for me. Yeah, I don't know. I used my interaction pretty improperly this game, I feel. You know, I probably could have gotten better value off of my Ash Blossom. I probably could have gotten way better value off of my Nash Knight. But, you know, he doesn't necessarily do anything too crazy with his turn, so I'm not, like, freaking out, but you know, definitely worth some analyzing on, you know, what I could have done better on this particular turn. But, you know, using the Ash Blossom on the Nerval to try to keep them off of Tri-Brigade cards seems to be the route to success. Just, you know, from everything, because, you know, the Lupus to make the Nash Knight in order to keep him off 2 bodies. I feel like I had good logic behind using that as my decision-making line. You know, it just happened to not work out. And unfortunately for me, my Fire Attacker was hit by a Droplet, so he is able to swing over it. And the issue is that, you know, I don't have any starters in my hand right now. You know, he does not have 2 cards in hand for me to just be able to normal summon the Jokul. And, you know, in order for me to be able to tribute summon the Jokul, I need to end on 2 bodies here, which I might not be able to do. I mean, I know that this Ancient Warrior guy has the ability to bounce cards. So it's totally possible that the Nash Knight just doesn't get me anything. Yeah, see, and that's part of the issue, right? Is that he can bounce it. Now he's just going to swing over the Fire Attacker. I'm in top deck mode. I'm pretty uncomfortable here because, you know, I might not be freaking out about what my opponent is capable of. You know, no offense, this end board is not like particularly scary, but we're in simplified game state. I mean, I'm in top deck mode. My hand is bustedly bad. So I'm just going to throw the Fua at this guy to try to make him end on this exact end board because I don't want it getting any worse for me. And thank God, RNG's just heard my prayers and decided to give me the top deck of a lifetime in Stake Your Soul, right? This gets me to Rosin. I know he has the Hoppier Squadron in hand, which, I mean, that card's doing nothing for this guy. So, whew, top deck Stake Your Soul saved my life. It's a 1-of, by the way. So, you know, I do get into Rosin, and that's going to all but secure the win for me. However, I do want to double check to make sure that I'm not missing anything, just to be safe, right? I know he has the quick play in the grave. I think that's in the graveyard. I know that he searched the quick play, and I know that the Hoppier Squadron's in hand. So the only interactions should be on the field, which is the Ancient Warrior monster to bounce, and none of which should be enough to stop me, right? You can't let the Rosin stay on field, because then I just column pop the Ancient Warrior Link too. So he has to use the Ancient Warrior monster's effect now, and if he doesn't, then I'm good, right? If he does use it, then again, I'm good, right? So this guy's kind of stuck. I just get to search my Holy Sue off of the Rosin. Rosin's holding a gun at the Ancient Warrior Link 2 here. I'm playing the game no matter what. I'm totally fine. I am totally okay. So we'll just add the Sue. I don't even know why I was looking at anything else. I mean, it's, yeah, just add the Sue, and then Rosin's gonna call and pop because I don't really have a choice, you know. And before I get the opportunity to, he's gonna go ahead and use the Ancient Warrior guy. Now, realistically, I should have had turn player priority and quick effect. I wouldn't have used it, right? But I'll just get rid of that, and now I'm in an even better spot because I can go, you know, Jokul effect, summon the Sue. Again, I know that his hand is absolutely dead. And then the Jokul, you know, has the luxury of getting me an extra dark in the Lantern. So I can now Sue effect to summon from deck the Zhao Long. And I think we actually go for the Madlove, because we know that he doesn't have Nib, so Madlove is going to get the field spell, and the field spell gets me whatever the heck I want. And I'm just going to go for lethal at this point, right? I'm pretty comfortable, you know, I'm not worried about anything, so I'm just going to, you know, target the Holly Sue, and then search the Zhao Long, right? And I'm basically just good to go from here, right? My number one priority here is just to make lethal. I felt, you know, pretty comfortably, and I do, you know, embellish a little bit here, which, you know, we'll see. And I get the search on the Ripper, and again, it's putting me down a body because, you know, I should just be using the Lantern to search the case, but, you know, I'm not freaking out here. You know, everything's totally fine. I embellish by summoning the Rosin, and, you know, it lets me use the Mad Love effect in order to summon the Zhao Long. So, you know, summon the Rosin here. Yeah, I've already used its effect, so we'll just go Mad Love effect, revealing the Earth and the Dark in my hand with the Azuna and the Lantern. And that's going to bounce the Rosin to hand, where I'll trigger the Zhao Long to summon itself, and then Zhao Long is going to let me search the Heavy Borger by revealing the 2 fires in my hand. And then I was looking at Caesar, but Borger's just the correct answer because of the attributes that I have in my hand. You know, that's 4k out of Borger rather than 3k out of Caesar. And again, I'm not worried about a nib, so we're just going to summon Borger here, and we're just gonna go for game. You know, swing for lethal. You know, I make the mistake of not playing around the Gores by attacking with Zhao Long first, but turns out he didn't have it, so we're all good. God, that Stake Your Soul top deck was crazy. And think about like if he hadn't had to drop, like he played into that fire attacker 3 times. If he didn't droplets the fire attacker on his turn, he has droplets for Rosin on my turn, and suddenly my turn gets way worse. I actually might not even win the game in that circumstance. Okay, so siding is interesting here because, again, I don't really know too much about the deck other than Tri-Brigade cards. So I know, okay, Lancia obviously has to come in, Nib has to come in, and there's a lot of summoning from hand, so Perulia has to come in, but I'm not terribly familiar with everything. So he tells me to go first, which was odd to me. That's not what I prepared for. That's not what I sided for. And you know, I was a little clueless to side out, but I was fairly confident in what I knew was coming in. You know, I did take some extra time siding and landed on a bunch of cards that felt fine. But honestly, I felt so good about the matchup that I'm really just not giving it a ton of thought, relying mostly on instinct. I did not, however, expect him to tell me to go first, and it seems to be a little bit of that going around this episode. But fortunately for me, you know, I drew basically a full going first hand, and when he drops the Fool on me, I know that I'm not getting drolled, so I can just play recklessly. You know, we start with the Jokel, like the Jokel search when we typically wouldn't do that, just because we kind of want him to droll us here if he has it, just because he fooed us. You know, it's mostly just because it's good practice, I guess. You know, and at this point, I'm thinking about how busted my hand is and how bad his deck is, no offense. And, you know, I'm thinking about just making a half board and that being enough. But ultimately, you know, I do decide to get a little greedy because I remember, oh, wait, you know, I sided out my trap card because I thought I was going second, and I am unfortunately punished for it later in this turn. But I made all these decisions with the idea of like, oh, I'll be able to set my trap card off of the field spell, and then halfway through my turn, I'm like, oh, no, I am not. So I had to make some sort of changes mid-turn with my thought processes. This was the moment where I was like, oh, shoot. I don't get my trap card. I sort of hover around here for that. Made me have to think about everything. So here we go into the Ripper, and unfortunately for me, I am immediately punished with an Imperm on the Ripper, and that did suck, because it happens on summon. Now, everything would have been fine if he let me Ripper, and then he Imperms, and then I can Mad Love bounce it back, right? That's like an actual legitimate strategy. But he did Imperm it on summon, and so now I'm in slightly an uncomfortable spot because I can get hit by Nibiru now and potentially lose the game. So now what's my concern? Well, my concern is Nibiru, the primal being. That's what's on my mind at this point. You know, Nib, what's Nib going to do to me? How dangerous is Nib? So we'll make the rock. We will use the rock's effect to add back from grave, adding the Sue. And then we're going to normal summon the Rosin. And we're going to summon it into the opposite EMZ. Obviously, you know, we're playing against a Tri-Brigade deck. They use Link monsters. So then, you know, we'll summon the Azuna effect. Really, I just sort of decide like, okay, you know, I've got the attributes in hand. If he nibs me here, I'm probably, you know, at least mostly okay. And, you know, I probably went a step too far by summoning the Lupus. It's totally possible I could have held on to that. But, you know, we say go for it. What the heck, you know. But my end board it's an awkward but intentional masterpiece, in my opinion. My Rosin is in the other EMZ, playing against a deck that I know Link summons as a core aspect of its game plan. My Ripper is coming back to me alive, with its effect live, to start their turn against the Tri-Brigade cards, which have graveyard effects. My Azuna and Lupus are there to go into whatever XYZ ends up being the most appropriate based on the cards that he plays. And I have a rock to get me an extra interruption in Mad Love, or, you know, add a card from grave to hand. I don't know. I thought that I handled that pretty well based on the circumstances. Now, all of this is backed up by the fact that my hand has all 3 attributes, a Sue and Caesar. So I'm good. Now, the Harpy's Feather Duster, upon initial, like, viewing, feels inconsequential due to my lack of back row until the second card hits board, Dark Hole. You know, this puts me in a pinch because now I have to shotgun my monster effects in order to try and survive. So we're just going to shotgun the Rosin, use its effect to protect itself, you know, chain Rock to add from grave, and then I also have to chain Lupus, and, you know, I did get a little lucky here where, you know, he uses the droplets to hit the you know, the excess bodies. But the good news is that he didn't send enough cards to hit everything. So, you know, first I use Rock to add back just to get my value out of the card. With no response, I then use Rosin's effect. Rosin being able to protect itself, it's nice because it's going to leave a body on board for me to bounce back with Caesar. It is only after the Rosin effect that a droplets hits the field. And then fortunately, he's going to send a spell and a trap, leaving me with the ability to use my Lupus. And that puts my opponent in the awkward spot. So by using the Azuna and the Lupus to make Tyros, now they have to pick between letting Tyros stay or negating it with the droplets and, you know, picking which monster they intend to let resolve. And then, you know, they do choose to negate the Rosin and the Tyros just to be able to nuke my board. Now, fortunately, another benefit of using Rosin's effect is that I do get to summon my Xiaolong, which is going to give me a body on board to summon my Caesar. And with my opponent only having 3 cards in hand, and, you know, limited options in the game, I feel pretty good here. So Caesar's going to hit board. You know, they've got 3 cards in hand, no indication of a potential starter in graveyard. So I feel fine. Okay, so here's going to start with the Radiant Typhoon. You know, at this point I have the equivalent of 2 interruptions. I've got a Caesar pop and a Sue either steal or effect to summon a Mad Love from deck to bounce. Adding MST, you know, which to me is whatever. Adding the MST is inconsequential. So here I do use my Holy Sue effect. And there's a reason why I do this. You know, again, why not just let him link 2 and then steal with the Holy Sue? I mean, that's totally viable. Genuinely, totally viable consideration. But for me, having the equivalent of 2 interruptions means that I have to be using my resources intelligently here. And I decide to summon Sue and then use the effect to summon from deck the Mad Love, because I want to be using Mad Love's bounce here to make this guy waste his normal summon to try and play. Because if he does that, it becomes easier for me to keep him off of cards, right? Once Mad Love hits board, I know it's time to use my Borger effect to try and draw out a 3rd interruption. And this is because I need the Earth in my hand for both the Mad Love bounce and the Caesar pop. So we go Borger, we add back the Sue, and then now we're going to use the Mad Love effect to bounce. Because again, if this guy's going to play, I want him to be using his normal summon. He has limited resources in hand. You know, I also know that this guy plays Link monsters, so I'm going to get value off of my Mad Love. It's got to be now, right? Because if you got the chance to Link 2, I'm not getting to Mad Love bounce anything. And, you know, a version of me that is more familiar with the Tri-Brigade cards might have chosen to start popping his monsters as well to try and keep him off of 2 bodies. But, you know, instead I decided to be a little cautious and hold my Caesar, you know, just in case I need to hit a harder choke point or make itself immune in order to survive the turn, right? He's used the normal summon now. He goes into the Link 2. And, you know, it is what it is. Now, fortunately for me, I did hold on to this Caesar pop because I was waiting for some sort of circumstance where Caesar's pop effect is going to get me way more value. And we're going to see why it was fortunate for me, why I was so patient. And again, I've talked about this a lot in episode 1. Patience is so important for this deck. Know when to use your cards. That matters so much. Now, I do unfortunately make another mistake and misplay coming up here, as you're going to see. Felt really bad about it, by the way. You know, this guy manages to get a hand that was, you know, pretty slim to nothing, up to now 4 cards. Now there's still, you know, one more unknown that I have to worry about. And of course, it's Dark Hole. Now, stupid me thinks, oh, you know, Regeki effect. I'm going to use Caesar's effect to pop a card. I'm going to destroy his monster. It's because I'm dumb, by the way. It's because I'm actually dumb. I should have used Caesar's effect to protect, because obviously his monster's going to die anyway too. But we aren't going to talk about it. It's just embarrassing. I know I goofed, you know, don't bully me too hard in the comments. And at this point, you know, the turn just becomes about survival. So it's time to watch and wait for my chance not to die. You know, I have exactly Lupus engraved to keep me alive, and we will see what that gets me. Because again, you know, I've already used Lupus's effect to make Tyros here, so I'm not going to be able to make anything. Can't make a Typhon. So really, it is just wait to see if he gets enough damage on board for me to be summoning Lupus to, you know, not die. And so he goes through his little combo here. And man, really no offense to this deck. I am just so underwhelmed by it, and I just don't feel threatened at all. I mean, again, at this point, it's literally just me watching and waiting for a situation where, oh no, lethal hits board, and I just gotta throw Lupus in the way to not die. But, you know, luckily for me, he decides to summon a monster with the exact amount of stats as my Lupus for attack, which, yeah, that's going to let me force him to have to decide between crashing and losing his only body on board, or letting me keep the Lupus for my own turn, which, by the way, he cannot allow to occur. He cannot allow that to occur. But, you know, it's tough decisions. He's got no cards in hand. The only card on field is this one monster. He knows that I have 6 cards in hand, and all 3 attributes, by the way. So, you know, it's tough. It's tough. What would you do? I guess is a good question. You know, would you make the trade, or would you just sit on it? But he cannot let this Lupus stay on board. Now, you know, he's going to take a while here to decide, you know, which is, you know, is his right. You know, I wouldn't call a judge for slow play here. This is a pretty tough decision, and we've been going through the game pretty quickly. But, you know, he's going to go into battle phase. Ultimately, he will decide to make the trade, and he's going to end up with nothing on field, nothing in hand, and no way to win the game. So from here, all I need to do is throw lethal on board, a feat which is more than easily able to be accomplished with what I have in hand. And with that, it's going to be GG's. And really, with this hand, there's a million ways to go about putting lethal on board. A million ways. So, really, I'm just sort of doing whatever. Again, you know, I'm not worried about anything. And he just scoops. Okay, so just post-match thoughts. I did dislike the Gordian Slicer. You know, I'm going to take it out, and I'm not entirely sure what to replace it with, but like it just never came up. I'm sorry, Trey. You know, I know you wanted me to try it. There just wasn't enough situations where, I mean, especially today in this match, there was 0 instances where I felt Gordian Slicer was necessary. You know, maybe there's a matchup where it's the move, but you know, it just felt like a dead weight in my side deck. So, you know, I'm going to take it out. And that puts me in another situation, because what do I fill that slot with? Previously I had been main decking Nibiru, and that was actually something that I did miss throughout the day today, was the fact that, Nibiru just kind of wasn't in my main deck game one, so I didn't have the hope of drawing into it. So I decided, I missed Nibiru in the main deck a little bit too much. I'm going to throw that in at 1, just to have something powerful to draw off of Charmy's game 1. And, have this as my side deck, right? The 2 Nibs, the Lupus, the Lancias, Charmy's, Inscription, Harpy's Feather Duster, and Judgment. It's nice that despite my misplays, I'm still 6-0 and looking to keep the streak alive into next episode. So, thanks for joining me on the Omega Odyssey, everyone. Be sure to like and subscribe, and recommend our channel to your friends. Thanks for joining me.